Right, welcome to part 2 of Melvin's little spring clean. If you haven't yet seen part 1, there'll be a card in the corner or a link in the description or something like that. I'm going to have a look at some more engine things. We changed the oil yesterday and took him for an MOT that didn't happen, so let's carry on. Right, first thing I'm going to do is get the air cleaner off and have a little look at the state of the filter. I'm probably not going to change the air filter because I don't think it needs doing. But then I'll have a look at the Dashpot oil because I haven't looked in ages and there'll probably be none in there, so that doesn't look too bad. There's a bit of crap in it, as you'd expect, but it's not terrible. I wasn't going to order a new one, and I might now, but that'll be fine for a little while anyway. And now, to get this off, there you go. Oh. I'll put that, rather than taking both vacuum lines off, I'll just put that to the side. Here is the carburetor, KIF38 SU carburetor, and I just want to see, it feels like there's plenty in there. I don't know whether you can see in there, you probably can't. But that's the damper. So when you go full throttle, it dampens how this lifts up. So there's oil inside, which means that it doesn't open straight away. So if I take off this, there should be plenty of oil in there. But there is oil in there, but there's not enough for my liking. So I'll get this out and I'll put a bit more in. Right, here's a top tip. If you don't have, well, the SU Carb companies sell little things of oil that you can fill your dashpot with. But if you don't have one of them, a Calpol syringe will do nicely. Put that in the top of your oil, obviously pull it out, pick up some oil and then put it in the top of your dashpot. I don't have an oil can that's full enough, so I'm going to get a cup, fill the cup with oil, and then take oil out with this and put it in the dashpot. Right, the dashpot now has loads of oil in it, so there we go, and then screw that back in. I may, once this is all said and done, I may end up cleaning up the inlet manifold and just generally everything around the carburetor, but for now that should do for the carb. The distributor is fine. I've been in the Dizzy Cap quite recently, so I know that's pretty much all clean in there. And there isn't so much else on this engine. Coolant's obviously fine, washer fluid. I'm going to check though in the brake fluid. I'll take off these just for ease of use. If you didn't know how a brake fluid light works, these two connectors go on there, and when the level drops below the bottom of this here, that's when the light comes on. So there is plenty of fluid in there. My camera work is terrible today, but of course I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking at what I'm actually looking at, so there you go. That's full, and that will do. Last thing I'm going to do in the engine bay today is have a look at the condition of the spark plugs. I'm only going to look at one of them because I'm sure they're all probably the same, and cylinder 1's the easiest to get at. Ah, you see, there you go. Now these spark plugs had Oh, that is very bright. I look so white there, flipping it. There you go. No. That's a little bit better, but basically that spark plug looks alright. I have had these spark plugs in for a year, and so they don't need changing according to the service interval, but the carb was running exceptionally rich for a little while, and I rebuilt the carb, or had the carb rebuilt, should I say, and since then that is a lot better, because they were so black when before I had the carb rebuilt. So put this back in. I'll put the HT lead back on. There you go. That, I think, is everything in the engine bay done that I need to look at for now. Here's one of Metro sounds without an airbox. So, I've given Melvin's interior a very good clean. I've not put any cleaning products on it, I've just hoovered it at the moment. But I shall be getting round to actually cleaning up and stuff soon. But I've got the mats out, and I've decided that, well, I haven't done it in about 9 months or so. I'm going to have a look underneath the carpets, because if there's one place Metros are renowned for leaking, it's the door seals. And they have a foam underlay with a hard rubber top to it, so you can't feel the carpets being wet, but underneath this foam holds the water for forever, and it just rusts the floor pans out. So that's why so many Metros have no floor pans, because this foam just holds the water and wreaks havoc. So I'll get this side up. Yay, dry footwells. On the driver's side, however, I've actually taken the seat out, because last time I looked, it was completely sodden under there. So I got rid of all the underlay, all the sound deadening, and took out a blanking plug and dried it out and left it. I haven't felt any dampness in the carpet or anything like that, but I know that it's leaking, and I didn't order a new door seal because I'm a bit of a mug, but also there's such common failure points that if I did it, especially if I did it, I probably wouldn't be able to fix it. So, I put a new door seal in it, it would still probably leak, knowing me. So, I just left it, but I'm going to have to, go and have another look, see if it's dry. If it's dry, great. If not, problems. If there's loads of rust, big problems. Right, sorry for the terrible lighting here, but there is this layer on top, and it is still ever so slightly damp under here, so I'm going to dry it out again. And I think I will go and get a new door seal. I mean, it is a little bit dirty under here, partially because someone was definitely in here before me, so a previous owner of this car knows that there's a problem in this corner. But I've had it for nearly 3 years now, and it's okay, unless underneath this layer here of whatever this like deadening hard material is just complete rust. But anyway, I shall probably go and order a new door seal, but I don't know. Having given the engine bay a quick go over, it's not perfect by any means, but I've just given it a quick spruce up, I have discovered that the cooling fan doesn't work down here. I'm going to guess that's something to do with the switch, which is down there and you probably can't see it, but yeah, the heater fan, not the heater fan, the radiator cooling fan doesn't seem to be working, which is a shame. I did have the sender changed last year. Sorry, the switch changed last year, but it seems not to be working. I don't know whether the switch has failed or it's just all gunked up with crap, because I know the cooling system of this car is full of junk. Either way, yeah, that isn't working, but this car does regulate itself really well. It never really needs the fan unless you're sat in traffic, and you have been for like 20 minutes. It just doesn't really get that hot. But yeah, that's an issue that needs to be solved. It might end up being solved with a switch on the dashboard, which will be done properly. Of course, it'll be in here, because when I was hoovering the other day, I had the brush attachment and I was brushing around the dashboard and sucked the LED out of this blanking plate here, which was for an old alarm system that used to be in this car. So that's been redundant for ages, and it's just an LED that's sat in there with its cables cut behind it, so that flew out. I've already ordered a blanking plug for that, but I might end up ordering a new switch like that, which may be wired up to a switch for the cooling fan. Either way, there you go. New problems every day. Now, of course, with that switch being buggered, the correct solution is just fit a new switch and it should work, and you don't need to mess around with what is effectively a bodge by putting a switch in the interior. But I've had 2 switches fail in 12 months, and whether that is just the cooling system being full of crap and therefore the temperature not actually getting through to the switch, I don't know. But it's had a couple of coolant flushes since then as well because of other things that I've messed around with. But I think I'm just going to put a switch in because it's peace of mind as well. I spend so much of my life looking at the temperature gauge in that car because I'm just consistently petrified that I don't think it's that much of a burden really just to have the switch, because the car very rarely needs the fan coming on. It never gets to a temperature that I think it needs a fan, and even when it gets really high up on the gauge, well, relatively high up on the gauge, the temperature the engine's running at isn't mega hot. It's not overheating hot, but it's hotter than it would usually run at. So yeah, I think the option is to get a little switch that I can click and turn the fan on. It would also be really nice if I could get if I could press the switch, have the engine running, and then if I turn the engine off and take the key out, the fan continues running for 30 seconds or so. I think that can just be done with relays, but I have no electrical knowledge. I have absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, so I'll need to talk to some people, do some research, and I'll come to a conclusion. Right, here's the first of the rust jobs. There's just, rust that's taken off the paint around here, around the fuel fill. And it's unsurprising that that's happened just because petrol having leaked on it over the 29 years this car's been on the road. So that's the first job. I've cleaned around the area, but I'm going to rub it back now and then spray. I'm not going to record all of this just because there's lots of background noise at the moment. There's people out in gardens and all that kind of stuff. So, and also there's not very much space here. I am right next to a wall. So, yes. I'll come back in stages and show you what I've done. So here we are again. I have put some rust converter on. I've rubbed it back, rust converter, and thoroughly masked up the area. So I'll give that a little bit of time. I'll give it some more attention in a bit, and then I'll spray the primer. Right, so I'm about to put the primer on, and no, this isn't perfect. It's very, very pitted in here, but I knew that anyway. I'm not going for a flawless finish. At the end of the day, number one, this is in the fuel filler. Number two, I'm not that bothered. And number three, it's never going to be perfect. So as long as it's better than it was, I'm fine. But that is a lot smoother than it was. All the rust is gone. It's had rust converter on it. It's now dry, so I'm going to apply the primer. So it's the morning after, and here's what it looks like. I just need to rub that back now. Clean it up, and then I will spray the colour. So there you go, that is it finished, and it looks quite good. I mean, obviously there's a line where masking tape has been, there's also a little line down here, and the reason for that is that I put a lot of coats on it. It's very, very thick, and the reason for that is because I wanted to have as much protection there as possible to stop the rust, as it was. This isn't an area you can see, so I'm not bothered about the finish particularly, but it's come out okay. I've obviously wet sanded it, got it to a nice-ish finish, and then I've put a layer of grease on top of that, as I had on it before, which should just protect it a little bit more. It does, so it is slightly off colour. You can just see the grease around there now, and there are a few little bits in the grease, so yeah, that's slightly annoying. I've got bits on there already from the grease, and there is this lip round here, but I'm not bothered about that, and I knew that was going to be there because I put masking tape. There's this lip here between the outer skin of the rear panel and the filler itself, and I did bring it out here a little bit because there's just a little bit of surface rust around there. But that is a heck of a lot better than it used to be. So I think that'll do for part 2 of this Melvin. There's a wasp there. Flipping heck. I'll get out the way from the wasp. But yeah, that'll do for part 2 of this Melvin thing. I'll try not to get stung by bees and wasps and other such creatures. And I think the rear valance next, but I'm not 100% sure. Either way, I'll be back again next week.